How can you take advantage of the C-suite position that you find yourself in? Or how can you have the advantage of the C-suite even if you are not in it? Very simple. Excellence in speaking. That's what we dive into in this series today, clarity.
Welcome to Advance with Mike Acker, the podcast designed to help entrepreneurs, business leaders, and professionals alike break through barriers by improving their practical leadership skills and increasing confidence in speaking. Your host is a best-selling author, executive coach, and founder of the Advance Public Speaking School and Advantage Publishing Group, two companies dedicated to providing an edge for leaders. Find out more about Mike at mikeacker.com. Now here's your host, Mike Acker.
I'm really enjoying going through this content with you. It's something I've been working on and just mapping out in my mind. And now I get to communicate it to you. You get to be the first people who hear this content on my podcast and on my YouTube. So thank you for taking some time to follow me, for subscribing, for tuning in. All of this content is being turned into a book. I'm working on it, fleshing it out. And in the book, it'll even be more clear than what I'm doing here. Also, in this series of videos, specifically videos, but also in the podcast, what I want you to hear is a one take. Is not going back through it and over and over again and heavily editing it out, but it's just me as a speaker taking out my thoughts, processing them, not having notes in front of me, and speaking it out to you. So that when you hear me, you go, I could do that. I could process my thoughts that way. I could write them out. I could know the flow of what I'm going to say and then speak wherever I might be speaking. So not only do I want to teach you in what I say, but I also want to teach you in what I'm doing, is putting myself out there and allowing that organization to flow from my mind after I've written it out in a way that I can understand. If you want more on that, would love to talk with you in a coaching session. You can find me at stepstoadvance.com. Always, you can just follow down lower on in the show notes as well. Now today, in this C-Suite Advantage series I'm doing, talking about how excellence in speaking brings about that C-suite advantage, I'm going to dive into this topic of clarity. Have you ever had that moment where you're listening to a professor, listening to a teacher, listening to a leader, and you have absolutely no idea what they're saying? One time I was meeting with a client and I had my client give a speech, and as he starts going through this content with him, I smiled about halfway through and I said, wait a minute, pause. And he said, oh no, what did I do wrong? Now we've been working together for a little while, so I don't start this out right away, right? And I said, I have no idea what you're talking about. And it wasn't that the subject material was something I was unfamiliar with. And I work with people in the science realm and finance realm that I really have no idea what they're talking about in terms of the intricacies of their subject material. But it was just that his overall way that he was communicating was so confusing. Now, my wife and I, we've been going to church for years as well. And that same scenario happens to preachers. One time I went to a church and I was living in Washington and we're looking around for a church because we had just moved from California. We're checking it out and I'm listening to the person going, so wait, what is he saying? It wasn't that the concepts were hard, but the overall organization. And really, I don't think that the speaker knew what he was saying. In the church world, there's a great little maxim that says, if it's unclear to you, it's completely confusing to them. Or if it's a fog in the pulpit, it's a cloud in the congregation. For you to take a hold of the excellence in speaking that leads to the C-suite advantage, you need clarity. Clarity brings an illumination. Clarity brings about greater understanding. Clarity brings about aha moments that then brings about all kinds of other benefits. But first benefit is simple clarity, understanding what the topic is, understanding the subject material. Have you ever been in a school environment where one teacher was absolutely excellent at teaching that subject and another wasn't? I was in chemistry class, and in high school, I absolutely loved chemistry because the teacher was able to take this big, huge, complex realm of chemistry and break it down for us to understand the complexity. Now, know this, I lived in Mexico at the time. So speaking Spanish is my second language, and I'm learning about these complex equations and complexity of chemistry in Spanish, which was my second language. But she was such a great teacher and speaker that it made sense. I understood it, and I liked it because I understood it. So I went to college, and we had to take those requirements, right, on science. And so I said, absolutely, I'm taking chemistry. So I went to that class in chemistry, and the professor, although very smart, very accomplished, had a very hard way of speaking. His natural language was not English, so he had that disadvantage sometimes of speaking a different language. But he got so caught up in the translation of his thoughts that he was confused, and his confusion brought about absolute obscurity to us. See, when you're not clear, it obscures the truth, but if you are clear, it illuminates the truth. That is excellence in speaking. That's what clarity does. Clarity illuminates and helps people understand more of the topic you're talking about, whether that's business or education or inspiration or whatever it might be. Excellence in speaking clarifies the subject material so that people are able to go, oh, okay, I got that. I get this. In fact, great clarity, great speaking, it makes it so simple that people think, yeah, of course. If you ever walk away from a speech going, oh yeah, that was easy, that was obvious, then there's a good chance that that was a great speech, a great communicator, because they took a subject material and they made it so clear, so obvious that you walked away going, yeah, I got that. I can do that. There's been different times when I've looked back at history that some people have had greater clarity than others. One of the great incidences of clarity is JFK talking about going to the moon. He went to the Congress in 1961, and he didn't make it confusing what he was trying to do. He simply said this, and I wrote this down. He says, we choose to go to the moon in this decade and do other things, not because they're easy, but they are hard. Now he spoke, my apologies, that one he spoke at Rice University. But when he spoke to Congress, he said, we will land a man on the moon and return safely to Earth. Now it's very clear what he's trying to do. In both those instances, very clear, hey, we're going to the moon and we're going to come back. And it's not going to be easy. It's going to be hard. The clarity is right there. So everybody can either get on board with it or not. But they're not arguing at cross ideas. If they are arguing, they're arguing at the same idea because that same idea has been clearly put forth. So many times, miscommunication and conflict comes from when people are arguing about things that the other person actually didn't say. This is actually a tactic in debate. When I was a debater in college, you could argue against something that wasn't actually what they're saying, and then that would get the other team to jump into that argument and away from their main points. So it's actually a way to win a debate. It's not a good trick. It's kind of a dirty trick. But this happens in movies all the time, where people are fighting about things that aren't really the same. One person believes this, and this person says this. Well, they're really arguing about this topic over here instead of this topic that meets in the middle. When you speak, you need to be so clear so that people can respond to actually what you're saying, and not something that they think you are saying. There's an advantage in leadership when you are clear. There's an advantage that really you can have whether you're on the Csuite or not. When you're clear, that your excellence in speaking brings this about and people go, aha, I know what you are saying and I'm on board. Or I know what you're saying, but I think there's a different way. Or I know what you're saying and I disagree and I don't even want to be on this team. There's a great book about that. It's called The Ideal Team Player by Patrick Lencioni. And I love that the clarity of what they're trying to say when they hire people, according to this book. There's 3 things we're looking for. We want people to be smart. We want people to be, that was a pure thought off the top of my head. It's great. It's on my bookshelf right over there. Check it out. Ideal team player. 3 aspects. But really, they have this clarity of what they're looking for when they're hiring, so they're able to hire effectively. That's what communication does. That when you clearly know what you're trying to say, and you're able to clearly organize it, even if you did get caught in some other areas, you're able to bring it back to what you're saying because you know what you're saying. Right. How do you do that? How do you bring about greater clarity in your communication? First of all, you need to understand what you want to say. So many people, when they speak, do not actually know what they want to say. They're processing verbally in the team meeting that they're leading. They're processing verbally some of their thoughts when they're presenting something. They're processing verbally, they're trying to find their idea in the midst of the presentation that they are giving. Not that you have to have every word scripted out, but you do need to know what you're trying to say. You don't actually want every word scripted out and memorize it. Otherwise, you're just reading the whole time like this. You don't want that. You want to be able to communicate and connect with the audience you're talking about, but you need to know what you're talking about. So when you go into a meeting, a virtual setting, when you're writing an email, when you're doing whatever it might be, ask yourself, what do I want to get across? What is it that I want to communicate? I wrote that out here, that clarity provides an advantage for leaders. And if you get clear in your speaking, you will lead people better and you will increase your productivity. You'll increase all these other areas that you're looking to increase. So I wrote it out for you. You write it out for others, that your clarity provides an edge for your communication and it provides an edge for the entire organization. It also reflects really well on you. So write it out. The second one, break it down. One of my favorite acronyms is KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. We like to make things really complex. In fact, what I could do is instead of just giving you 3 ways to be more clear, I could give you 50 ways to be more clear. I could go through a whole bunch, and probably in the book, because you'll have it in front of you, there will be a lot more ways to be clear in your communication. But in a speaking setting like this, where you're listening in the car or where you have something else going on and you have this on your computer at work, or you're multitasking or you're checking it out on your phone as you're out for a walk, you're not in a spot, most likely, where you can write down everything and process it. Instead, I want to illustrate and encourage you to write down one thing or to just remember one thing. It might be this. It might just be, I got to keep it simple. When I go into the meeting, I don't have to tell the entire staff what they need to know. I don't need to tell everybody what they need to do. Instead, I just need to get across the one main idea. Have you ever been in a meeting where so much was said that you don't remember anything? And then you were in a meeting where someone was super short and you remembered everything. You know, the Gettysburg Address was not the longest address of the day. Do you know Martin Luther King Jr.'s day, or famous speech, I Have a Dream, was preceded by somebody who spoke for a lot longer, and yet we don't remember him or what he said? Remember the shorter, singular ideas where it was so clear what Martin Luther King Jr. was saying. It was so clear what Abraham Lincoln was saying that people remember it today and rehearse it and relive it. So make it clear and make it simple. Third way to make it clear, plan your conclusion. What do you want to do at the end of your time that you're talking? What I want to do at the very end is ask for you to subscribe to this channel. That's what I'm going to ask. At the very end, I'll pause and then I'll ask for you to subscribe to this channel, to subscribe to this podcast. I'll make my intentions completely clear to you. But really, I actually wrote down my concluding statement right here. I'm actually going to read it. Usually I wouldn't do this, but here's what I wrote. Speaking provides understanding to your audience and your team. So you see, I'm actually reading it so you know that I planned this out. That's my conclusion. I am going to end with that sentence. That's going to be the way that I want to leave in your mind. The way for you to be clear to others is to come up with the last sentence or two that is the thing that you want to leave with them. That's the final landing point. So think about in an airplane, I write in my book, Right to Speak, that you got to plan your landing, because a lot of people, when they're speaking, they don't plan their landing. They plan their takeoff, their introduction. They plan the flight, the main speech, but they have no idea where to go from there. And you don't want to crash. You want to come down smoothly. You want to land the plane. So when you are trying to improve your excellence in speaking so that you can have the C-suite advantage, you need clarity. And when you have clarity, when you are able to speak to your team, it provides understanding. to your audience and your team as to what they need to do, on what they need to know, and how they need to do it. I hope that you're enjoying this series on excellence in speaking. Please take some moment to just subscribe, follow this, share it with somebody else. We're going to be unpacking more concepts that are all about excellence in speaking, how to improve, with tangible tips. Ultimately, this and so much more will be included in a book that I'll be releasing in 2021. Yeah, 2021. Come on, 2021. It's going to be a good year. And it's going to provide so much help for you. And I don't want you to miss out on the journey ahead. Also, please provide comments, feedback, or questions that you would want me to provide more clarity to, so that I can think about that and provide the best book possible so that you can have the advantage of the C-suite, whether you're in it or not. Thank you for subscribing.
Thanks for listening to Advance with Mike Acker, a podcast designed to provide an edge for leaders through improving practical leadership skills and increasing confidence in speaking. Mike is a best-selling author and business owner who has helped many leaders increase their skills and their confidence, propelling them to new heights in their personal and professional endeavors. Join an incredible group of professionals taking the steps to become better leaders at connect.stepstoadvance.com. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.